Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our latest edition of Cota Access. All right, got to move my slides here. There we go. Cota Access is a webinar series offering in-depth, market-driven discussions from featured entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and leading executives, exploring cutting-edge business and technology trends that fundamentally impact large enterprises. I'm Rich Ellinger, partner and chief technology officer here at Cota Capital. Today, we're diving into one of our key areas of focus, which is vertical AI. And specifically, we're going to explore how AI is transforming the telecom and architecture engineering industries through a vertical application that's already making significant waves. And so I'm thrilled to be joined by Sean Shahini, CEO and founder of Inorsa. Sean has a deep background in structural engineering and AI, and he's led one of the most successful 5G rollouts in the US before co-founding Inorsa. Welcome, Sean.
Thanks for having me, Rich. Glad to be here.
Great. So to kick things off, why don't you tell us a little bit more about Inorsa and the challenges you address with your current solution?
So like you mentioned, I come from the industry. I was a structural engineering manager in energy, utilities, and telecom. And everywhere, regardless of what you build, if it's a telecom tower or oil and gas platform or a house, you always have the same kind of milestones that you have to hit, from real estate or site acquisition, architecture, engineering, permitting, and construction. And all of this is a very time-consuming manual process. There's a lot of paperwork and documentation. And Inorsa's goal is to help our customers kind of manage, build, maintain, and upgrade their infrastructure through automation and AI, through three fundamental layers of products. We have a data ingestion engine to help customers understand their documents and extract value from them. And then we have a validation or QC engine that helps customers make sure the data in the documents is accurate and figure out what they have to work on, where the mistakes are. And then we have generation services where we can generate really complex construction drawings, structure analysis, permitting documents, leases, contracts that the customers need basically to go build or upgrade their infrastructure. So at the end of the day, it's delivering a lot of value to the customers from these complex, inaccurate documents.
Okay. So, as you mentioned, telecom is a complex industry with a lot of moving parts. So, what are some of the current challenges faced by companies in this space, particularly when it comes to documentation and compliance?
So when it comes to documentation, there are really three areas that customers have the biggest problems. One is when you build an infrastructure, you usually have to maintain, upgrade it for years. So we have these telecom towers or fiber lines or small cells or different infrastructure assets that have been around for 20, 30 years. And we're building a lot of new ones. So and all the process for everything from real estate to permitting, construction, drawings have been done manually by people. So there's a lot of unstructured data and bad documentation that has been done basically by humans and have not been kind of accurately done because it's just a very difficult job for a person to do, to make sure you have hundreds of equipments that you're putting on these towers or utility poles. So that the first problem is that unstructured data. The other problem is the large volume of it. So it's not like every telecom tower company or every telecom infrastructure player has hundreds of thousands of miles of fiber or towers. And this large volume and complex documents really makes it difficult to manage the data and figure out what you have to do accurately. And at the end of the day, what this ends up being is the permitting process is very difficult because what our customers have to do or architecture engineering firms have to do is to make sense out of these documents to get a permit. And the permitting body exists in the US or all over the world to make sure we build infrastructure the right way. And they have to protect kind of the public interest in that. And if these documents are not accurate, you're not getting through permitting. So permitting can take several months. There's a lot of back and forth. It's very time consuming for everyone and holds the industry back.
Got it. Okay, so Sean, a lot of our audience probably isn't super familiar with the telecom or sort of how the telecom industry works. So maybe can you make this really concrete for people? So maybe talk a bit about the initial pain point you're solving for a top cell or cell tower operator.
So in generic terms, like construction drawings are very generic product. Anything you build, you need a construction drawing. If you want to build a shed in your backyard or a house or a tower, or put pipes underground. Humans need schematics basically to go build stuff, because we can't go read tens of hundreds of pages of reports that an engineer has done basically to design their infrastructure. And this causes a lot of delays when you have to basically create accurate schematics out of a bunch of documents that are not accurate. So what we're doing, probably our bestseller product is basically our automation for construction drawings, where we have reverse engineered what a lot of the CAD tools do to be able to give customers very accurate, detailed construction drawings that is done by a machine, and it's context aware based on permitting requirements, jurisdictional requirements, basically customer to customer. Like Verizon may want to see something under construction drawing that's different than AT&T, because all of these customers also use these as inputs for their systems to do something else with it. So we've been very successful to help revamp a lot of engineering deployments at large scale, where there are tens of thousands of construction drawings that need to be produced in a short time. Our platform is volume agnostic. So when it comes to telecom, if in a year a telecom tower company needs to upgrade 10,000 towers at the same time, for us, it doesn't matter. One construction drawing takes 5 minutes. 1,000 of them also takes 5 minutes. So at scale, this really helps these telecom deployments move along faster. To put in perspective for you, the timeline, for example, from the moment the customers decide to upgrade like their infrastructure to actually they can go to the field and put an antenna tower, it takes a year and a half. So it's and it's all because of these mistakes. Every time you go to permitting, something's wrong, you go back, you have to spend 6 weeks, so you go get back in line. Also, you have to go back to the engineering body or engineering firm to upgrade these documents. So we really shrink that timeline and give the customer control over the data, because as long as these drawings or documents done manually by humans, it's impossible to get consistency. So the customers end up with not knowing what's on their infrastructure.
Yeah, sounds good. I mean, the sort of the simple way I always think about your first use case is it's like you've got this army of documents, right, that are sort of inputs to this construction drawing. Then you have an army of human beings that basically have to interpret those documents and then construct a CAD drawing out of it, right? And what your system does is it takes as input this, army of documents, and it automatically generates almost perfect drawing right out of the box, right? So.
And there are a lot of rules. It's like each jurisdiction in the US, every city has their own permitting requirements. So it's impossible for these humans to go to hundreds of rows of like equipment spec sheets or documents and then decide like, this is what this jurisdiction in the US wants versus this other one.
And a lot of the documents are even inconsistent, right? Which then makes that problem even harder at times, right?
Yeah, because at every milestone, a human is creating these documents. And there's nothing wrong with humans creating documents. I think it's just, there are certain tasks that are boring and repetitive, and people get bored and they make mistakes. So one mistake can get carried over, and it gets caught last minute when it comes to permitting. So it has to go back and everything has to change.
Right. All right. Well, let's maybe switch gears here a little bit and talk a little bit more about your AI and your AI platform. So, in your view, how does AI, specifically for a vertical application like Inorsa's, differ from, say, a more general purpose AI solution, and sort of what unique advantages do you feel it offers?
So a lot of the AI tools that are generic, basically, they can handle broad tasks like ChatGPT or any other tool out there. And a platform like Inorsa is specifically designed to address pain points of telecom. So we are very aware of every single requirement for the industry. I think AI is a generic tool for us also. It doesn't matter if it's AI or if there's any other tool. We combine several different applications to give the customer the end result they need. But our platform is trained on industry-specific data and workflows and hundreds and thousands of documents. But it also understands like all the details of from permitting to jurisdictions to things like construction drawings, where we ingest large volume of them. And these are not necessarily tools that you can go use an off-the-shelf AI platform, and help customers make predictions and have a deep understanding of their data and what they have to do, because we help them to upgrade their infrastructure end to end. It's more than just construction drawings, so they can calculate all of the costs, bill of materials and things, and all the financials. But also, at the end of the day, when you have a solution that gives the customer the end result they need, everything becomes a lot faster, cheaper, more reliable than most generic tools out there, because you have to tweak them so much. And our platform is also like, we protect the customer privacy and data. That's really important to most of our, especially large enterprise customers. So they train their own models. It's all self-hosted. So they can make sure that they're protected because it's infrastructure data too. And it's really critical.
Yeah, so that aligns really well with what we're seeing at Cota. So I'd say as a whole, we're big fans of solutions that focus on specific vertical data sets and workflows that are currently largely manual and involve lots of unstructured data. And so we think there are great opportunities to drive meaningful productivity gains in those situations and create, under the covers, essentially powerful new systems of record from what was previously unstructured data. So you mentioned earlier a bit about document generation and automation of that, as well as management. And I think you've covered some, but is there anything more you'd like to elaborate on about how this automation impacts the efficiency of the telecom deployments? And how do you measure ROI for your customers?
So, I mean, I'll answer the last question first, but to measure ROI, I mean, you can measure it in two simple ways, like a simple way and a more complex way. One is a task takes a human or a person 10 hours. Now we're shrinking down to 1 hour. So this same person now can generate a lot more revenue for the customer, but also more accurately. So you can say, this is my normal cost as a customer is $1,000, now you shrink down to $100. But that's the soft cost for our customers. The most important thing is actually the hard cost, where now we're creating this revenue generator engine for the customer in two ways. One is now I can deliver 10 times more to my end customer, basically, and generate more revenue month to month and bring some revenue milestone that we're supposed to get paid 6 months, a year from now to a month. And the other way to look at it is also when it comes to telecom deployment, especially a lot of these telecom companies are REITs, basically real estate companies. So getting to rent is the most important kind of value prop, and how fast they can get to rent, especially as public companies or even private ones, results in multiples in revenue, same as like a software company. So there are huge ROIs for the customer, but also it's a very challenging kind of process to deliver kind of the end results. So we spend a long time developing the platform. And once you create a clean system of record for the customer, there are a lot of other benefits you can give besides just you need this specific document like a construction drawing. So
yes, that's probably a perfect segue. So what are some of the other processes that you think your solution, by sort of structuring this data, is going to allow you to automate? Maybe you can touch a little bit more on some of those.
I can give you some current examples and some future examples. Like, for example, one of the things we do with our customers is helping them with their M&A process, because the real estate assets, these telecom towers, they buy and sell them all the time. So we had a customer that, and when you go through a due diligence process, you have a very short window of time that you have to make sure that you make the first offer, or sometimes the letter of intent, that you want to buy these assets. So we shrink that time significantly. There's a lot of money basically that they're investing to buy the infrastructure so the customer has to know they make the right bid. They have really good insights into the documentation and the process. We've had customers that we shrunk a 6 weeks process to a week with a third of the staff they needed, and they could get through the due diligence process a lot faster. But and that's just the power of understanding these documents. It's not just using large language models and things like that. It's a lot more complex. But also, there are a lot of benefits when it comes to sales, because now you give insights to the customer so they can go generate more revenue by figuring out what they have on their towers or assets or real estate, basically, and how much rent they're collecting at which location. So
yeah, that was one of the things that was kind of crazy, as you said. You told us once that these tower operators don't even know what equipment necessarily is on their towers, because they don't have a system of record, if you will.
Yeah, it's very interesting, because every time something has to happen, they actually literally have to go to the folder, open the file, read the document, or read the lease or contract or spec sheets, and figure out how many antennas do I have here, what's the elevation, how much space would I have to fit more stuff. So it's very manual and time consuming, and especially when it comes to growth of revenue, like speed is key, and accuracy. It makes it very difficult.
Yeah, and sort of that we've talked about it here in a couple different ways already, but what part of what I like about Inorsa, right, and what we see more broadly, right, that Inorsa is a good example of, is you're basically ingesting unstructured data, you're normalizing it, and you're augmenting it. And what you're really doing is, while you're solving a couple of initial pain points for the customer, you're basically building a structured data foundation or new system of record that's going to enable you to automate things in the future, right, that people just couldn't do before. I mean, I know we've talked a lot about it, but is anything more you want to add on that topic before we move on?
You're 100% right. I think that the building a system of record for the customers so they can do a lot of, we start from the difficult stuff like construction drawing. We basically had to build a CAD engine first that by itself is a standalone successful product. But it helped the customers see the value in other aspects, and building that system of record to overhaul the entire, everything from sales to financials to services, which is like construction drawing, structure analysis, permitting, and being volume agnostic. I think that's the other part. Now that once you have access and clean data as a customer, and it's all self-hosted, you own everything. It helps you scale really fast, and especially with ups and downs of construction. It's even construction is seasonal just throughout the year, depending on the jurisdiction in the US. So it's hard to manage these by people, and especially there's a lot of struggle when it comes to managing cash flow, even because you're busy one quarter, you're not busy the next quarter, you're 3 times busier the quarter after. And the data privacy is another aspect. A lot of the, when it comes to a lot of telecom deployments, or in general, a lot of the work is done manually by people. A lot of times outsourced outside the US. So there's a lot of privacy data violations that has happened that have actually harmed customers. We have instances where T-Mobile network got hacked because the SharePoint folder of the outsourcing company, and it was public news too, in Lebanon got hacked. So there's some risks here besides just risk of getting through permits when it comes to data privacy and how things are handled today with infrastructure deployment, that I think products like Inorsa are going to help customers alleviate.
Okay. So we've talked some about sort of the other processes and functional areas within the telecom industry that Inorsa will be able to expand into because of this data foundation. But, you know, can you talk a little bit about industry expansion? Because, you know, you guys ultimately see the world as more than just the telecom industry.
Yeah, I mean, our first goal for the next year is just to nail down the end-to-end process for the customers in telecom, because the value prop is pretty substantial. If we give access to customers to take advantage of the data in their documents and in general information, there's a lot more to be built. So we have a sales suite coming up. We have our virtual twin, basically, that we build a 3D representation model that you can compare with the digital twin and make sure everything is accurate. Those are huge value props in telecom. But one of the benefits of what we do is our tools are pretty generic to mostly construction. So we are not necessarily a telecom related product only. A lot of the tools we build, like construction drawings, can be used everywhere. When we build an automation engine for construction drawings on top of our AI platform, this can be used in data centers, energy industry, utilities. These are very adjacent, very similar industries to telecom that we are expanding into within the next couple of years. And I think just building a foundation to deliver the right product to the customer and be able to serve it, because I think that it's a digital AI transformation, because you go into a large organization, they were doing things for 20 years a certain way, helping them to guide them through the process. It's very similar across the board when it comes to certain aspects of infrastructure deployment. So gaining that experience in telecom has helped us kind of figure out how to serve not only large scale customers, but in different verticals that build, from a structural engineer standpoint, build the same thing.
Okay, great. That's awesome. So how do you see, maybe talk a little bit about the future of telecom and architecture engineering as a whole as an industry? Where do you see things go? So
I think as the volume of these build outs, like telecom deployments, whereas fiber, there's a lot of government funding right now for fiber deployments, or wireless, like towers, small cells, and this type of infrastructure. The volume goes up, the task becomes more challenging because you have the same type of people or amount of basically companies trying to deliver a lot more high volume. So you have to have some automation AI tools that are taking advantage of the applications that are even available out there and fine-tuning them to the telecom or architecture engineering use case. So you have even EV charging. It's very similar, or data centers are very similar. These are very booming industries, but the challenge is the services are very slow and they're becoming more and more difficult. So I think as we move towards giving our customers more and more tools to automate the end-to-end process of whatever they're doing behind the desk, from real estate to engineering, permitting, or even M&A and running due diligence, because they have to figure out what's the financial benefit of buying or selling these assets. Things become more shrunk and automated, so they can spend time, and a lot of the investments will go towards more build out, because one of the reasons kind of 5G deployment got slow was just the permitting was so slow. We had to build hundreds of thousands of small cells or upgrade towers, and it was just impossible to go through permitting. So, or creating accurate documents with the same amount of people we had. So I think in the future, a lot of these applications will automate most of the end-to-end process. I think there are a lot of intelligence that is being built to figure out exactly what you have to build in every single jurisdiction. It will help our customers have better financial planning, because the way we are solving the problem is mostly from end to the beginning. So if you start from construction, permitting, drawings, real estate, the customers can have way more accurate insights. First of all, what's possible? Because when I was an engineering manager, we had a big problem where the customer would design a network that will come to us, and then you want to help them build it, but it's impossible to build them in a location they want to build, where there's no structural capacity. The permitting body doesn't let you put an antenna in the middle of the city in an intersection. And then you have hundreds and thousands of those. So it's hard for the customer to have any prediction in terms of what's physically possible to build somewhere, and also financially have accurate numbers. So I think a lot of those spending will become not less, but become way more targeted over time. The services will be shrunk. I think there's going to be an opportunity to have a marketplace kind of environment where these drawings or documents are 99% automated, and a structural engineer has to just sign off on it. So a lot of these service companies, either they're going to transform to offer other services to their customers, or essentially they're going to go out of business even, because as a structural engineer, I can just go sign up and sign drawings. I don't need to be an employee somewhere. So I think both financially and technology-wise, and it's not going to take even a long time, in the next 5 years, a lot of the architecture engineering businesses are going to change on how they deliver to their customers. And then on the other side, a lot of telecom companies or mission critical infrastructure deployments can build a lot faster and get to revenue faster.
Okay. So, we've obviously talked a lot about the building side of things, but again, sort of going back to this data platform you're ultimately building underneath, there are other types of problems you can help with, right? Like predictive type problems. Maybe you can speak to some of that.
Yeah, I mean, we are more focused on the physical structure, like what the customer needs to actually build and upgrade it. So there's a lot of benefits, not only financial, because they can know how much they have to spend, but also when it comes to even as much detail. So we have a virtual twin product that's coming. We can even tell the customer the health of structures. And if you put more antennas on these towers, one of the problems you have to solve is figure out if there's structural capacity and there's space capacity. So we can predict the health of the structure. If there needs to be any upgrades, what's the implications in terms of time, engineering requirements, permitting or construction, and also the sales financial side of it. So at least on our roadmap, there's a lot of new initiatives that we are pushing out to help the telecom deployments speed up. Sales is definitely a focus, because at the end of the day, all of these customers have to generate more revenue, and the other part is savings. But even more important than savings, quality and speed. So whatever we can do to speed things up for them, that's the most important deliverable for the customers.
Sounds good. So, every entrepreneur, right, and every company faces sort of challenges, lessons learned along the way. So maybe let's spend a minute or two talking about, what are some of the things you've learned or challenges you experienced during the development of your AI platform?
So this was in the beginning, given our product development philosophy, that we want to give the customer as close as possible as the end result they need to go do their work. Like we give them a highly accurate construction drawing where they can just do the last half an hour, or a little bit of work to finish it, submit it to permitting. Or when it comes to M&A, giving them very accurate outputs that even like normal large language models cannot to that level of accuracy, through other tools, and filter things and clean things up. It was way harder than we thought. I think it took a lot more complexity, especially when it comes to generative construction drawing. What we get measured with our customers, it's 100% accuracy, versus if you give the same task to an outsourced firm or to a person to do somewhere, you're not necessarily sitting and figuring out how the process has to work. Also, these documents were, the documentation process varied way more than we originally thought. It was more complicated, customer to customer, individual to individual. So every single engineer does their work their own way, and kind of building a system that can capture all the complexities. That was a big challenge that we overcame, and I mean, luckily we can deliver the value to our customer. The other part is the digital transformation. So every time you go to any new company, there's a lot of fear on AI, and I think building a good software company or business is more than just building a good product. It's helping the customer become successful, transform their team, understand where the other areas where the same thing can deliver value. Maybe it's not necessarily what they were doing that's very repeatable, and have people understand that there's now more opportunity to generate more revenue rather than the fear of losing their job. There are some jobs that will go away, but there are new jobs that are coming up. So that kind of helping customers through digital transformation has been something we've been pretty good at, and we're getting better at. But it was something when you're a startup, we underestimated how much work it takes.
So one thing you sort of touched on earlier that I'm curious. So one of the things I feel like we're seeing with AI solutions is the customer demands more actually of the technology than they would of the humans. So like, you know, if, as you said, sort of you're striving for 100% accuracy of the drawings, you're not quite there yet, right? But for every time the computer makes a mistake, do you feel like you get dinged harder than if the same human being would make the mistake? Like I think about self-driving cars, right? And you look at stats that suggest that they're way safer at times than human drivers, but we focus, like we don't give the technology a pass the way we give humans. Do you see that as a challenge in your space?
Yes, but I think there's a huge benefit that this is what we do. So we generate, for example, when it comes to construction drawings or leases, all of these documents, tens of thousands of them. If there is a mistake, or there is an area where we can improve and make things better, if a customer goes to the same kind of, like an engineering firm that does this manually, or how they outsource it outside the US, if there is a mistake, this mistake has been repeated in several different areas, and now they have to go manually fix everything. For us, it's very simple to upgrade the system. If you have to update, or even some of them are not mistakes. Some of them is just the permitting jurisdiction has changed their requirements and nobody looked at it, or it just happened yesterday, today, like you're submitting your permits. These things happen all the time. For us, making those changes across the board for 10,000 documents, it's instant, it's pretty simple, and it's way faster, it's more efficient for the customer. So as we run ROIs for the customer, I think it's important to show them where the value is, and they see the value. I mean, that even though it's not like a self-driving car that you would run over someone, it's more that my permit approval rate is becoming better and better. Before, I would get 50% of my permits get rejected. Normally, if you go through permitting, you should know that you get rejected at least once, because the permitting body has to show they reviewed everything. But we've been very successful in kind of overcoming a lot of those challenges for the customer, as the numbers show. So when it comes to macro level, yes, like we get held to higher standards, which our customers have very high standards. So it forces us to build better products, but also forces us to build better systems to upgrade those products instantly, so they don't have to wait, or we can give them the value right away. So.
Right. So yeah, I think we have a couple more minutes left here, so I'm gonna just ask a couple last questions here. So what's the biggest misconception that Inorsa's new customers have when they first come on board?
One of them is how complicated it is from a technical standpoint. I mean, we've been doing this work across the US long enough that our customer onboarding deployment process is way faster than even a typical enterprise platform. So we have customers that go to other platforms, that ERP platforms or any other tools, and the onboarding process takes a year. For us, that's not the problem. We have an iterative process. The customer gets value, I wouldn't say immediately, but pretty fast when it comes to. So we had an M&A customer onboarded within a week, and they had a due diligence process coming up, and they were live within a week. So our customer support team has been there to make sure we can deliver the product, but it's not as complicated as most people think. And especially we've solved it operationally. That's probably one of the heavy lift on the customer side. Is a big misconception. I mean, at the end of the day, there's a lot of work, but it's not as complicated. Especially that we've got a lot of experience kind of building the right product with the early adopters. So
great. All right. So as we look to wrap up here, I'm going to make my compliance department and put our standard disclosure slide up. But maybe last question, Sean. So what's talk to me a little about what you see at the end of the day. What's Inorsa's competitive edge in this space, and why is the problem you guys are solving one that sort of only Inorsa can solve, or Inorsa has an edge on?
So I think there are a couple of competitive edges, but they're at the two ends of the process. One is how we understand specific industry, like mission critical or especially telecom requirements, how we handle this documentation. It's very unique. It's more than just using language models. It's very complicated. And the other part is how we deliver the result to the customer. So we built a lot of IP that kind of becomes stronger as we go through more permitting jurisdictions. We solve the problem for our customers at a larger scale, where we can generate a construction drawing that's a standalone CAD product that's basically more accurate than if you could do it in AutoCAD. And it has all the functionalities that are auto-generated. So it's how we ingest the documents from a technical standpoint and how we deliver to the customer, but also how we understand the industry. I think it will take a lot for a generic tool to be able to serve the enterprise customer and the day-to-day requirements, supporting it through the digital transformation. I would say that's probably the less technical kind of edge. It's more like the know-how of the industry on a day-to-day basis. But yeah, I would say 70% the IP, 30% how you do it. So
sounds good. Well, thanks so much for joining us today, Sean. I've enjoyed hearing more about Inorsa and how you're shaping the future of telecom and architecture engineering. And I continue to look forward to see where you guys are going to go next.
Of course. Thank you very much for having me. And thanks for joining, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.